Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope you're doing really well in this moment in time. If you're feeling anxiety, I hope that you realize right now, in this place, in this space, you're okay. Everything is fine. There's not a tiger attacking you. Acid rain is not melting off your flesh. Okay, that doesn't ever happen. Don't have anxiety about that. Nothing is happening right now in this very moment. You're totally fine. And if you can remind yourself every moment that you feel anxiety that nothing is happening right now, I am okay in this moment. I am okay. And then every moment becomes a minute, every minute becomes an hour, and every hour becomes a day. Every day becomes a week, and suddenly you realize, I've been okay for a whole week, actually. I don't need anxiety. I'm fine. I'm fine. I've always been fine. I'm always going to be fine. Some of you needed to hear that right now because I did not plan to start off with that one, but someone needed to hear that. I don't know which one of you needed to. I know one of you that could use that information, but I don't know. I hope that also, besides that you are learning to use the phrases, the mantras that we were given. Michael Shirhan of Ashtar Command gave us Plua Ra Sha. And when you imagine blue and green energy while saying that, it gets you to the core of your being. It gets rid of all the negative stuff, the stuff that is from your past, from the 3D world, because that's so 3D and we don't need it anymore. We are in the 5D, the fifth dimension. And so when you say Plu A Ra Sha, you are in fact incorporating more of who you are at the core of your true being in your everyday life, and you are vibrating at a higher rate and bringing about your manifestations faster. And that is a lovely one, and it will help you calm your anxiety or depression or anything that is holding you back emotionally or otherwise. It clears your path and clears the way for your spirit guides to help you, as well as your holy guardian angel. It clears everything. Now, the other thing is, though, if you use the one that the Lyrans gave to us last night, this one is more intense, more incredible, and I've been working with it since last night. As soon as I finished the show, I was like, I want this, doing the mantra, then I want this, doing the mantra, I want this, doing the mantra, and everything it feels better. So you imagine the thing that you wish to have, and you say it out loud, and then you say, Linku Asha Tadaba. Linku Asha Tadaba. Link, like you're linking yourself to your higher self. Linkua Sha. Linkua Sha. So it's like you're kind of like saying, I'm linking up. And it sounds, the word Sha is similar, but Pleiadian and Lyran are totally different languages. And the way that they were showing me is that this Linkua Sha Tadaba comes from a very ancient, very magical race that used to live as primitive people, but they weren't primitive. They were in touch with the magic of their souls. And they showed me that they lived kind of in the forest on their world, and they were kind of like the spiritual gurus or the shamans, kind of like the jungle shamans here. And it's similar kind of a lifestyle. They're like the equivalent of the Native Americans, but on the planet Lyra. Or, well, I don't know if their planet was called Lyra. I know that their race is called Lyrans. Like, we're not living on Huma because we're human. So I don't know what their planet was called. I know it was in the star system. Vega is what they told me before. Anyway, their planet, I think, was either there was a war and became uninhabitable, or it blew up, or a lot of the cities were blown up. I don't totally understand what happened there. But anyway, they were showing me that this tribal people, and they kind of lived like they would sit around a fire at night and they would play with their magic, and they became very strong with their magic. And so this would work for us as well. So Linkua Sha Tadaba. So basically the first part, Linkua Sha, is it hooks you to your higher guidance. And then Tadaba is like kind of like saying, so mote it be. So in a way, but there's more magic in it because the words itself, the energy of the words have the magic in them, so again, just to reiterate, if you have to hear yesterday to hear the whole thing, because I was channeling and telepathing with them, and there was like a little entry song that they made me sing. It was kind of crazy. I couldn't stop singing. I was just like doing the thing that they told me. But that is to set the stage energetically so that you can do this thing. And I could not even remember the words to the song if you told me. It's just like, I don't know. If you said, please sing it for me, I'm like, I don't remember it. I think that Linkwasha Tadaba was part of it, but there was more to it. There was energy that they were beaming at you while I was singing the song. It was like pretty crazy. And at the same time, I was doing light language through my hands. So it's like a physical light language, not just the light language I was singing and then later saying. Crazy night. It was a crazy night, and I enjoyed myself thoroughly because they always have the most amazing energy, and they have a pretty good sense of humor, I think, and I'm grateful for that. But anyway, when you say this phrase, the first thing is you link yourself to your higher guidance, and you will notice a boost, almost like you're being lifted up into your soul, and then all of the other stuff will just fall away. So it does a lot like the Plua Rasha of the Pleiadian tribes. But then when you go up there and you say Linkwa Sha Tadaba the first time, you link up to, so you say what you want, and then you say that, and it links to your higher guidance. And what I've noticed is if it's something that you don't really need or isn't in your best interest, your energy of wanting that thing will immediately fall away and you'll no longer want it. Very helpful. The second time you say Linkuwa Sha Tadaba, what that does is it's almost like a way of calling the thing that you want, and it lights up. Almost like a twin particle, and it lights up. And so it's starting to vibrate at the same vibration as you. Then you say it a third time, Linkuwa Sha Tadaba, and it creates an energetic line between you and the thing that you want to have. Whether it's a person, place, event, you can't do it with a specific person, but you could say someone like that or better than that person. Like, that might be the idea of what I want, but that or someone better, right? So I did it last night after I got done, publishing the show and everything, and I did it with bringing my true love. I didn't say the name of anybody. Obviously, I don't like to control anyone. So I just said, the person who will be a true love for me. And so I did that. And when you do an action of the thing that you want. So say you want to be invited to a specific party, And so what would you do at the party? You'd be maybe dancing, right? Or talking to people. So maybe you'd be striking a pose so that someone could take a picture of you. So you could do one of those things. Or maybe if you have a drink in your hand, because you're probably going to have a beer or, something. So you want to invite yourself to this party, say, or any party at all, and you imagine yourself at the party. Then you say Linkwa Shatadaba the first time, and you go up into your higher guidance and connect with your soul. And if that party is not going to be in your best interest, you're suddenly going to lose interest in even going. But if it is in your best interest to be there, then you say it again, and that party, the correct party for you, that's in your best, highest interest and the best, highest interest of all the people in a 100-mile radius of you, if it behooves them for you to go. If it behooves them that you should go, boom, that's where you'll be. Right? So you light up that event, even if it's in the future. And then you say it one more time, Linkwa Tadaba, and you focus on it, the energetic line between you and the party, and anyone between you and that party that is along that line that's going to shorten the space and continuum to get you invited to that party, or maybe the person's going to give you the ride to that party, or the person's going to sell you the tuxedo or the dress for the party. You see how it works? I mean, they were showing me more than what I was saying during the show last night. So this stuff is real. I feel it. I didn't have anyone specific in mind. I asked for my one true love, hoping it was my twin flame, but I didn't want to specifically control him. I didn't have anyone in my mind. I made my mind blank. I had my eyes closed and I imagined that the person who will truly love me will be with me. And so I put my arms kind of around myself, like hugging myself, and imagine that was the person who truly loves me will be hugging me. Person who's going to be real and genuine. And I did that, and I linked up to actually my twin flame. I felt it. And he had like an energy of, please don't find anybody else, because I am on my way to you. And he gave me the energy of he has to uncomplicate some things in his life, not a relationship, but he has other stuff going on. And he kind of told me, look, I'm like a fourth of the way done, and when I uncomplicate my life, I will be in yours. I will be writing you or calling you or somehow being in your life. And that was an energy that I got. So I felt like there was a more cleared path between my twin and I. We'll see. We'll see if this happens. It would be really, really awesome if it happens. Maybe I'll try to do this with a job, or, maybe I'll try to do this with maybe a screenwriting job. And I'll let you guys know. I know one that I'm supposed to be writing for somebody, and he's supposed to get back to me in January. And I think that his crew that he's going to work with, they were on another set or something. And things are just, maybe he's working on another movie right now too. So, you know how it's like in Hollywood, it's like everything is all about the timing, everything. So I'm going to do this and see if that collapses the time frame. If I can't get a quick, a quick little note from him going, look, okay, let's do it. This is how much I'm going to pay you. Here's your 10%. What's your bank account number? Bada boom, bada bing. Let's go. Let's start the contract. Let's go. So I'm going to try it and see. But I'm going to not say him specifically or his project specifically, which I really like. And it's a project directly for Netflix, so it's going to be pretty neat. But if I can just do in general a screenplay, like someone's going to find me and go, you're the one I want, And I already did this for my show so that within 6 months I have enough listeners that I can support myself with my show. Because right now I could not even support myself with my show listeners for 1 week. I can support myself right now with my show. The money I take in for 1 whole month, I can support myself for about 2 days. if I eat once a day and don't go anywhere and I don't pay for tax. I mean, it's like I would be homeless, but at least I would, eat 2 days a month. So, I'm not there yet, but it's okay because when I started, it took me 5 weeks to make $1, right? So now I'm at like about $2 a day. So it's awesome. It's growing and growing. It is getting better and better. But a lot of you did not listen to the Halloween episode. It's a lot of inspirational stories of spirits that some of them were crazy stories. Like just, I can't believe that happened. The same thing with the episode about Cheryl having a waiting room for the spirits that she sends to heaven and how she does it. And the Halloween specials about ghosts that I encountered before I knew how to send them to heaven. But halfway through the show, I actually had 5 spirits show up in my room and I had to release them. So that was like pretty incredible. I was like, what? That's actually pretty neat. Like, in the middle of my show about that, here they come. And my room got really cold and I described that whole thing. So if you haven't heard those episodes, they're really good. I think they're really worth it. I did a good job on the Halloween one. It was a little bit extra longer than usual, but there's also some magical spells you can use, even if you're not a true bona fide witch, and even if you're not a hereditary witch. It's just a way to get your subconscious mind to agree to release some special dreams to you so that you can divulge to yourself who your true love is. So that's my Halloween episode. I gave 2 magical spells, as well as I explained how to send spirits to heaven if you are ever in that situation where you see a ghost or a spirit or someone is haunting. You could say, look, I'm going to help you get to heaven. And you could do exactly what I did. And you don't need to be afraid, because if it was you on the other side and you were like, help me, I didn't go into the light, I thought it was UFO. I ran and hid because I was scared. I didn't know I was dead yet. Darn it. I mean, that's like, that happens to a lot of people. They get really scared. I saw a light directly ahead of me. I thought it was supposed to be above me, and I thought it was a truck coming my way. I ran and I hid until it left, and then I opened my eyes and there was no light. And I realized after that I was dead, and oh my God, now I'm totally wandering the earth. Like Kane and Kung Fu Ghost Edition, so that kind of crap happens. And so it's helpful to know. And so the more people, and in Cheryl, she gave the way in which she does it as well to help people, because there are so many spirits around just kind of wandering around, not knowing what the hell to do, where to go. And they need to go to the next level where A, they're going to be comforted and taken care of and see people that they know. And B, they're going to be able to, decide what they're going to do next. Are they coming back to Earth? Are they going to go to another planet? Are they just going to relax for the next 100 years? You get a choice. All of it is a choice, which is pretty cool, actually. So I wanted to encourage you guys to listen to those episodes if you haven't yet. I know that this was kind of, this is a holiday weekend, and Feliz Dia de los Muertos hoy, en caso es en su país hoy. Basically what I said in Spanish right now is Happy Day of the Dead, in case it's in your country today, in case it's the holiday today. I was supposed to go to Feria today, and I just could not get up for it for nothing. My body was just aching, and I was still tired. Really deep sleep. I've been having, since we got anchored fully into the 5th dimension, my God, my dreams, my sleep is way deeper. My dreams are really, really, really vivid. Like, I'm there with people I don't know, but in my dream I know them fully, and I wake up, I'm like, who is that, Like, I had a boyfriend in my dream. It was really cool. I was like, And, it was cool. It was like a new relationship. Of course, I woke up, I'm like, who the hell is that? I don't know that person. And I kept having, I think I was having a dream that my boyfriend wasn't telling me the whole story, that he was walking around looking like he's a human, but the human was an overlay, and he's really blue and green. like an alien. And what's kind of weird because, I mean, I just met someone who was, told me he's Pleiadian straight up. And he's from there. And so I thought that was kind of weird. Maybe I'm just like venting that out. I don't know. You know, but years ago, I had a dream that I did have a boyfriend who was blue and green. His skin is like, kind of like an iguana's skin, very soft, and like little plated armor type, almost like an amphibian, but dry skin. Not like really dry, not like he needs to moisturize. He's not ashy or something, but he was like kind of I don't know how to explain it. Like, he didn't have hair, obviously, because he's like a reptile, but not really a reptile, but like between a reptile and an amphibian, but hominid. And he was blue and green on his skin, and some of his scales had a little bit of a purple. He was beautiful. He was gorgeous, and his facial features looked human, but he had those colors on him. And Toronja is what I was calling him. And I never had heard that word in Spanish before. And what was really strange is that he was, he said his name and it wasn't really Toronja, but that's what I was calling him, Taranja or Taranya, which was a very strange name. And I was like teasing him. I'm like, you know, that's like that drink on Star Trek in an episode I saw, you know, where this creepy little kid has these jagged, weird teeth on another planet, and he offered Captain Kirk this Tranya, which is grapefruit juice, and Taranya is like how you would say Toronja if you don't know how to pronounce Spanish, and Toronja means grapefruit. And in this scene, he was like, it was like grapefruit juice with a little bit of what looked like dry ice in it. Like, so maybe it's like a cup within a cup, and it was like a wine glass. And who that little kid is he's the little brother to Ron Howard. So as Ron Howard's little brother was an actor in the 60s and 70s also. When Ron Howard was busy playing Opie, his little brother's busy playing this creepy little alien kid on Star Trek. And anyway, he's like, Tranya? And he hands him Tranya. But it really, I found out later, because the color was such a creepy color. I'm like, how the hell did they get that? And my ex-husband, he was a big Trekkie. And so he told me, okay, he pauses. We're watching this on video. Because he had, you know, Star Trek on video. And he says, okay, so now look, what he has in his hand, that's actually grapefruit juice with a little bit of, you know, the dry ice. So it made it like all smoky looking and crazy looking. And what we didn't realize is years later, after he died, after my kids and I moved to Guatemala and then later Mexico, I was in a store and they had all these Mexican sodas. And if you guys have not ever had Mexican soda, oh my God, get yourself to the nearest Mexican store where they sell the Mexican products, the imported food from Mexico. I mean, the food is phenomenal, A. And B, look for the Mexican sodas. They've got sangria soda. There's no wine in it, but it's the flavor of wine with fruit in it, but it's a soda. It's incredible. But they also have apple soda and just the different sodas. It's really interesting. But the grapefruit soda is so refreshing on a hot summer day. And that was one of our favorite drinks. And one day I was looking at this, I'm like, Tranya, oh my God. This little kid probably misread the script and they said, that's perfect, because it sounds so foreign and alien. No one will ever know, or maybe the person who gave him the script didn't know how to pronounce Toronja, so they said Taranya. So I was kind of teasing this guy in my dream, like, you know, it's like you have the name of grapefruit, right? I had a couple dreams about him over the years, and what was freaky is my kids both had a dream about him once. And I thought, that's weird. It's like I own my own house in the dream, And it wasn't the house that I own in Detroit, so it might be the house I'm interested in down here, because you can only see so much in pictures, when it's being sold online. So when I finally do go, if I see that room, it's going to freak me out, because the way that there's like a sitting room that goes into the kitchen, and he was living with me. He was my boyfriend, and it was like weird because it's completely, totally accepted. Like, we are 100%, we're an interracial couple. I'm a human and he's a whatever he is from wherever he's from. And everyone somehow automatically totally accepted it. It's like we're all living the life of the cantina in Star Wars suddenly, It's like all the aliens are interacting with all the aliens, and it was just like totally normal. And it felt like, and we had been worried that the racial thing was going to come in, where people were going to stop being racist against each other because we're all humans. And now we're surrounded by aliens from many different worlds. And then the next thing would be to be interracial couples that are actually interracial couples. And it somehow didn't happen. And we were like, everyone is accepting of everyone. And it was just totally normal. And he went to work for the government. He put on a suit, like a human suit, which was insane. Like with a tie and everything. And he would kiss me goodbye like normally a human would kiss a human. Like, it was really such a weird dream. I woke up from that going, what the hell? What the actual hell? What did I eat last night? Oh my God. And then that dream, he came to me a couple different times. And then one time he came to me while I was awake. Energetically, I felt him with me. And he called me my love. How are you doing, my love? It was very weird. I know he's not my twin flame. I know he's not. But he's like a soulmate somehow. And he came to me and he was like, yeah, so we're going to meet in a couple years. I'm still alive and we're here and I'm up in a spaceship, not just on the outer regions of, like, we're not too far from Earth. We could get there in a day or two when it's time. And so now that all this stuff has happened with the ascension and the fact that we're here and we're anchored into the fifth dimension, now these fifth dimensional beings will be able to come to be with us and hang out with us and be like, hey, dude, you guys should be a part of the Galactic Federation, yo. Okay, they're probably not going to talk like that, but it'd be so funny if they did. Or if they talked like Jesse on Breaking Bad, I would laugh so hard. But it's like crazy. It's like, these, I feel like all these races are just waiting. Like the Lyrans are waiting and the Pleiadians are waiting, and whatever my future boyfriend, supposedly, if that's even real or true, I don't know what that's about, but maybe he's waiting, And I feel like there's people from all over the place just waiting for us. The Arcturians, they're up in the 9th dimension. They're probably not going to come visit us until we can raise our vibration so high that we're in the 7th dimension, and then they can lower theirs to the 7th, and that's where we would meet them. So a lot of them will still channel through us, and I've seen their cloaked ships, but they're so like hard to spot, and it's really hard. It takes a lot of energy to lower yourself to a lower vibration. It takes so much energy. It's almost emotionally painful because it's like going backwards in evolution. Anyway, so I've been thinking about all this stuff today, and I've been thinking about all these shows that are out suddenly out of nowhere. What about all these TV shows? The Man Without Gravity. Like, I haven't seen it yet, but I saw the advertisement on Netflix. I'm like, wait a minute. So this guy's levitating. That's really weird because I keep getting a feeling like I'm starting to levitate, but I never quite get off my bed or off the floor or off the couch. But I keep getting this feeling like I'm going to be lifted up any moment. And a few times it's happened. And I know Grandma Marion, I think I said this during one of my Grandma Marion story days back in the early parts of the show, of the podcast episodes. I think I started that in February and March. So you go back and listen to Reverend Marion Jones episodes. But she had to hold on to her podium because she would be floating when she's talking about God, and her energy and her vibration goes so high that she would be floating a couple inches off the ground, and she had to hold on to the podium so she wouldn't like fly up to the ceiling in her church when she was talking to people about God and Jesus and whatever, spiritual stuff she's talking about. And it was weird because on Wednesdays, she talked about metaphysics, but during her church, she actually would talk about God-related things. But she wouldn't talk about heaven. And I mean, she'd talk about heaven, but not about hell and all the negative stuff. She would just talk about the positive stuff. And when she talked about the positive stuff, and she'd be reading from the scriptures, but she'd be like imbuing it with that energy from above, because she wanted people to feel more connected to themselves, right? So it was kind of like her secret mission, right? But when she was doing that, she'd float a couple inches off the ground, and she'd have to grab onto the podium. And I had a friend who was praying, and she was praying, and she felt angels with her, and she started crying as she's praying, and she realized that she was lifted up off of the ground, and she was floating. And I have another friend who floated. As soon as she changed her name to Frances, she would float every night in her bed. She'd be rolling over and grabbing the covers because she'd be so cold. And then she realized, she woke up one day and sat up, and she was like 2 or 3 feet above her bed. So I know that this levitation thing is real. It's St. Francis of Assisi, he levitated when he would meditate and pray. And sometimes he would have birds land on his shoulders, and he'd still be levitating. So there's a lot of stories about saints in the Catholic Church that did that. Not Padre Pio. Oh my gosh, I could see his face. Martin de Porres. He was from the city of Porres, Peru, and he ended up living in Lima. Anyway, he was a saint, a true saint. I visited his bones, and I felt the energy. His saintliness was still in his bones. It's really incredible, powerful. But he also levitated. He would be praying, and he would just like rise up into the sky. And what they called her the Rose of Lima, Santa Rosa de Lima, but that wasn't her real name. But Santa Rosa de Lima, she also levitated. She would fly high up into the clouds when she would pray. And so there's a lot of accounts, but I started thinking about all of the TV shows. Raising Dion. He can just, boom, teleport himself, He can do fireballs in his hand. He can he can do all kinds of things. He can levitate other things besides himself. Even in the TV show Charmed, one of the sisters could levitate. Another one had fireballs. It's like the same powers over and over and over again, being shown and displayed in a wide variety of ways. Like, we were in a nuclear accident, now we have this power. Or we were born with this power, this is weird. Or, we're witches, we have this power because we're witches. And I just watched Escape to Witch Mountain, and these kids have these powers because they were from another planet. Right? But the common theme is that a lot of these powers are pretty much the same. I could go invisible. I can teleport. I could bilocate. I can shoot a fireball out of my hand. I mean, there's only so many powers, right? There's not that many powers. When you put all of the stories together, and I'm an INTJ, so I'm always thinking, how can I put things together so that I can understand it better, right? Jesus could walk on water. So either he was making the surface of the water solid with every step, or he was making his body lighter than the water with every step. He was changing the molecules in his body. He was in another dimension. Minimal. He was probably in the 7th dimension, and yet kept the corporeal form in the 3D world where people could still see him, but would explain his ability to ascend, literally ascend, in a way in which now we can't see him. He's gone. Another dimension. Science can explain it. The higher sciences, the physics, quantum physics, can explain a lot of this stuff. But I don't know. I've been thinking about this, guys. I've been thinking about this. It's just, If it was a nickel, it would have burned a hole in my pocket, fell out of my pants, and rolled down the street by now. I mean, I'm constantly thinking about the levitation. That's like the number one thing I want to do. I want to levitate. You know, I want to do that. I've already mastered mostly the psychic thing and the clairvoyant thing. I could do psychometry. I have traveled in time, but I'm so excited about what's next. Let's do the next thing. This is fun. Cross the assignments off the list of your spiritual handbook. You know, with the flick of my wrist, my candle turns on. Well, I can't do that yet. But oh my God, how cool would that be? And I want to float around. I want to just levitate above my bed. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to try to use Linkua Sha Tadaba to activate the levitation gene in my DNA, if that exists, or activate my Merkaba, if that's what it takes. It's pretty cool. Someone wrote me a really incredible message on Facebook that she sees the time tunnels, and I did read your stuff. I have to reread it, and she said that she saw golden angels of light making the tunnels up at different rings around the tunnels, and I do remember the rings around the tunnels. I don't remember it being angels. I wasn't focused on that as much as I was looking in the center of the tunnel and watching the scenes as they passed by me in little streaks of light. And if you slow way down, the streaks of light become a scene. You slow so much down, you drop into it, and now you're in that scene, watching it, and the people in the scene can't see you. That's when you travel to the future and back in your consciousness. You know, and there's also the side dimensions, and I don't ever recommend going into the, you could go forward and backwards and to the side, to the right, to the left, but never in between. I don't recommend those side dimensions. Are scary as hell. And I don't know why, but I feel like that's a big no. And not a no, like, don't eat the fruit off the tree of knowledge because now you're going to know the knowledge of the universe and you're going to realize you're in the matrix and freak out. I don't mean that. I mean, there's creatures in there you don't want to mess with. I have a feeling. I don't know why, but I just feel it. Like, no, don't go there. I mean, I'm still having enough fun just going back and forth in time and in my mind. You know, I have seen a couple things from my future that I hope are real, but anything can change. Everything is fluid. All of time is fluid. And that fluid is like a light. And when you're going down that tunnel, the time tunnel stuff, you see those streaks of light and you start to slow it down, but it's like, it's malleable. It's a malleable substance. You could change the future. You can't really change the past, but you could change the future. If you go forward in time and see what's potentially possible. But if you change the future, I think you split off a new timeline. You know, or you could choose the timeline that you wish. You can see where you're headed on the tracks you're on right now. You could hop the track and go to another. I suggest going up to a higher vibration where everything is 2% different. I've been hopping tracks all week and I've been consciously aware of it. Like, I'll feel it. My whole body will like start to lean to like the right. And it's like, and there's like a weird sound. And then all of a sudden, like if I had tinnitus in the other world and suddenly it stops in this world, or suddenly I hop into a body that has tinnitus going on right now. It's so creepy. It's like, and then I look around. Oh yeah, that part of the couch is a different color again. It's a little bit different color from when I first moved in now, but it's closer to that color. But like a couple days ago, it was like a way different color. And my son's like, yeah, it's how it always was. I'm like, you're from a different timeline. You're not going to remember, you know? It's like, I'm an artist. I love art. I love colors of things. I remember things. I mean, if you know the box of Crayola 64, you know, like the colors of the couch were brown and taupe. And then when I hopped timelines more recently, it was brown and tan. Tan and taupe are two totally different colors when you look in your Crayola 64 box with a sharpener at the back. You know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. Way different colors. That's like saying indigo and violet are the same color as lavender, and that's not true. Not in that. It's almost like saying indigo violet is the same as periwinkle. It was like that much difference. Okay. Unless you have that box of crayons, you're not going to know what I mean. But, I mean, pink and fuchsia, totally different colors. You know, the sky was beautiful again today, but most of the day it was rainy and cold. I didn't feel like leaving the house. I missed my opportunity to go to the feria today, darn it. It closes at 1:30. I woke up at 12:30. I'm like, oh, this is not working. It'd be like 2:30 by the time I get down there. So I didn't go. And today's Day of the Dead, and I didn't go to any of the things. Tomorrow there's a whole bunch of celebrations here in Cuenca. I think it's been 199 years since the Spaniards left or something. Maybe it's only since the Incans left. I don't know. It was like the people that were living here were the people, and then the Cañaris came and took over, and then the Incas came over and took over the Cañari lands, and then the Spaniards came over and took over for a while, but then we kicked the Spaniards out, and then eventually the Incans left. So it might have been when the Inca rule left, when the Incan Empire collapsed. And I think that's one of the celebrations, but that might be the one tomorrow's, the Incan thing. But there's still enough Incan blood here in the people that they still have the Inti Raymi festivals, the Incan sun god. There's a lot of festivals are still celebrated here, as if that empire never really collapsed and never really went away. It's been incorporated in the whole country. Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, I think even in Venezuela a little bit. The Incan influence reached all the way up there. Huge. It was a huge empire. Anyway. All right, so I'm just done shooting the breeze. Wanted to let you guys know the heartmath.org, HeartMath Institute, their data is temporarily unavailable, they say. I hope to God they're okay, and I hope that their headquarters is not in California, because there's fires and fires and fires there. I'm sorry for you guys that are having to evacuate. You're probably not listening to the show because of the stupid fires. I know a lot of my audience is from Cali, so hashtag pray for California if you're not there. If you are there, just keep the faith, keep praying, and keep running from that fire. Eventually, it has to go out. LeBron James bought that taco truck out. I hope you guys heard about that story. He sent it to the firefighters in LA to eat for free. He paid for everything on the trucks, so just give it all to the firefighters. Don't charge them. And that was the day that LeBron and his wife and his kids, they had to grab everything they could and just GTFO. They got out of the house, and he's pretty sure he lost his house. He doesn't know yet, I don't think. It's crazy. I'm just so sad. Hollywood, there's been some premieres canceled because of it. An actor that was on Gilmore Girls today died. I don't know his name. I can't remember. Taramantino but I saw his face, and I'm like, I do have face amnesia, but he's not one of the main characters. I don't know who he was. I don't know which character he was, but anyway, whoever he is, he was 60 years old, and God bless him, and on Day of the Dead, he died. I'm like, that might be somewhat fortuitous, actually. Might be easier to get to heaven in that circumstance, possibly. I don't know. I always have more questions than answers. But, okay, disclosurenews.it, their stuff was up and running, and oh my God, it was a good idea. It was a good day that it was up, because this is what happened. 9:30 a.m., they write, the strong activity that we see in progress at this time started decisively at the turn of the local midnight, corresponding to 17 UTC. Initially, with peaks at power 20, or 20 Hertz frequency. Within 2 hours, it reached 30 Hertz At night, I'm saying, when I say Hertz frequency, that's what I'm saying. They're calling it power. Crazy. They just said 30. It reached 30. They didn't say power even. It reached 30 at 19 UTC time. The first movements were followed by a period during which the amplitude constantly was oscillating between 10 and 20. And then at 1 p.m. UTC today, the very powerful activity began, bringing the amplitude close to power 100, or 100 Hertz frequency. The maximum power of 98 was reached at 5:30. And then at the 1700 report, it says, we could recap today's activity with how long the amplitude remained above 40. For 6 hours, it was above 40 Hertz. From 3 to 9 UTC time. Today's maximum is power 98, as previously reported. From 11 UTC, the values are back now to normal. So I'm going to look at I'm looking at the chart. It's almost like an upside down triangular shape. Almost. More fuzzier than that because it's a graph. But I'm looking at the shape of it. There are some white streaks on either side. The pillars, what they've said before, people have called it the pillars. Very interesting stuff. All right. So, and again, the data is unavailable for heart math, which was shocking. So basically, Schumann Resonance only for one place on Earth today, Italy. Okay, so lesson 145 is where we're at for the Foundation for Inner Peace in A Course in Miracles lessons. Lesson 145 has only 3 thoughts. The first one is what we've been saying for a couple days. My mind holds only what I think with God. My mind holds only what I think with God. And then from lesson 129, beyond this world, there is a world I want. Beyond this world, there is a world I want. And lesson 130, the thought is, this is the review again, it is impossible to see 2 worlds. It is impossible to see 2 worlds. So there you go. Those are your thoughts to contemplate for the day. When I come back, we are going to read again from Clairvoyance and the Occult by Swami Panchadasi, otherwise known as William Walter Atkinson. Shh, don't tell any of his lawyer buddies that he wrote this book. Shh, right after this. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's high time you did. It is the absolute easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's absolutely free. Second of all, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. You guys have known that I've been doing this for 8 months using the Anchor.fm app right on my cell phone, and I have done it everywhere, right? I have recorded this in my living room, my bedroom, little cafes in Quito, Ecuador, all over Cuenca. It's so absolutely easy to make your podcast, and editing is just a snap. Anchor also will distribute your podcast for you, and it took me about 2.5 months to become syndicated, and now I'm available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more, and so can you. You can make money from your podcast also, and there's no minimum requirement. You get paid from your very first listener. It is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So please, if you are interested in making a podcast of your very own, do not hesitate to start with Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you. All right, guys, this is part 7 of Swami Panchadasi's Clairvoyance and Occult Powers. This is, we're on lesson 13, and it is Day of the Dead, so, oh my gosh, I love those crazy coincidences. 13 being, of course, the death card in the tarot. So, being the INTJ I am, I'm always putting these weird things together. This book is about 102 years old, more or less. This is a really, it's not only an interesting book, it's a lesson book. It's like your spiritual lessons to learn these things. So I think we should get into it. So without further ado, this is lesson 13 in Clairvoyance and Occult Powers. The subtitle of this is Second Sight, Prevision, etc. Notwithstanding the difficulties in the way of an intelligent explanation of the phenomena of future time clairvoyance, second sight, prevision, which of course that means, seeing the future, right, etc., of which I have spoken in the preceding lesson, the human race has always had a lively reminder of the existence of such phenomena, and the records of the race have always contained many instances of the manifestation thereof. Among all peoples, in all lands, in all times, there have been noted remarkable instances of the power of certain persons to peer into and correctly report from the mysterious regions of the future. Passing from the traditional reports of the race and the minor instances known to almost every person, we find that the scientific investigators of psychic phenomena have gathered together an enormous array of well-authenticated cases of this class. The reports of the Society for Psychical Research contain hundreds of such cases which the student may read with and study with interest and profit. It is not my intention to present a full history of the reports of this character. Rather, I shall call your attention to a few striking cases in order to illustrate the phenomenon clearly and forcibly. There is such a wealth of material of this kind that it embarrasses one who wishes to select from it. However, I shall do the best I can in that direction. Following, to commence with, I give you extracts from a well-known case reported by a prominent member of the Theosophical Society, which has attracted much attention. It was related to this person by one of the actors in the scene. It happened in India. A party of English army officers were entering a dense jungle. Then follows the story as below. We plunged into the jungle and had walked on for about an hour without much success when Cameron, who happened to be next to me, stopped suddenly, turned pale as death, and, pointing straight before him, cried in accents of horror, "See, see, merciful heavens! Look there! Where? What is it? We all shouted confusedly as we rushed up to him and looked around in expectation of encountering a tiger, a cobra. We hardly knew what, but assuredly something terrible, since it had been sufficient to cause such evident emotion in our usually self-contained comrade. But neither tiger nor cobra was visible, nothing but Cameron, pointing with ghastly, haggard face and starting eyeballs at something we could not see. "Cameron, Cameron," cried I, seizing his arm, "for heaven's sake, speak! What is the matter?" Scarcely were the words out of my mouth when a low but very peculiar sound struck upon my ear, and Cameron, dropping his pointing hand, said in a hoarse, strained voice, "There, you heard it. Thank God it's over," and fell to the ground insensible. There was a momentary confusion while we unfastened his collar, and I dashed in his face some water, which I fortunately had in my flask. Right, water, really? Okay, back to the story. While another had tried to pour brandy between his clenched teeth. And on cover of it, I whispered to the man next to me, one of our greatest skeptics, by the way, "Beauchamp, do you hear anything? Did you hear anything?" "Why, yes," he replied. "A curious sound, very sort of crash or rattle far away in the distance, yet very distinct. If the thing were not utterly impossible, I could have sworn that it was the rattle of musketry." "Just my impression, murmured I. But hush, he is recovering." In a minute or two he was able to speak feebly and began to thank us and apologize for giving trouble. Soon he sat up, leaning against a tree, and in a firm, though low voice said, "My dear friends, I feel that I owe you an explanation of my extraordinary behavior. It is an explanation that I would fain avoid giving, but it must come sometime, and so may as well be given now. You may perhaps have noticed that when, during our voyage, you all joined in scoffing at dreams, portents, and visions, I invariably avoided giving any opinion on the subject. I did so because, while I had no desire to court ridicule or provoke discussion, I was unable to agree with you, knowing only too well from my own dread experience that the world, which men agree to call that of the supernatural, is just as real as, nay, perhaps even more real than, this world we see about us. In other words, I, like many of my countrymen, am cursed with the gift of second sight, that awful faculty which foretells in vision calamities that are shortly to occur. Such a vision I had just now, when its exceptional horror moved me, as you have seen. I saw before me a corpse, not that one who has died a peaceful natural death, but that of the victim of some terrible accident, a ghastly, shapeless man, with a face swollen, crushed, unrecognizable. I saw this dreadful object placed in a coffin, and the funeral service performed over it. I saw the burial ground. I saw the clergyman, and though I had never seen before either man, I can picture both perfectly in my mind's eye just now. I saw you, myself, Beauchamp, all of us, and many more, standing round as mourners. I saw the soldiers raise their muskets after the service was over. I heard the volley they fired, and then I knew no more." As he spoke of the volley of musketry, I glanced across with a shudder at Beauchamp, and the stony look of horror on that handsome skeptic's face was not to be forgotten. Omitting the somewhat long recital of events which followed, I would say that later in the same day, the party of young officers and soldiers discovered the body on their commanding officer in the shocking condition so vividly and graphically described by young Cameron. The story proceeds as follows. When on the evening following we arrived at our destination, and our melancholy disposition had been taken down by the proper authorities, Cameron and I went for a walk quietly to endeavor, with the assistance of the soothing influence of nature, to shake off something of the gloom which paralyzed our spirits. Suddenly he clutched my arm and, pointing through some rude railings, said in a trembling voice, "Yes, there it is. That is the burial ground of yesterday." And when later we were introduced to the chaplain of the post, I noticed, though my friends did not, the irrepressible shudder with which Cameron took his hand, and I knew that he had recognized the clergyman of his vision. The story concludes with the statement that in all the little details, as well as the main points, the scene at the burial of the commanding officer corresponded exactly with the vision of Cameron. This story brings out the fact that the Scotch people are especially given to manifestations of second sight, particularly the Highlanders. Woohoo! I'm all raising my arm in solidarity with the Highlanders. Okay, or mountain people of that land. It is hard to find a Scotchman who, in his heart, does not believe in second sight. Oh, yes, I agree with you then, you can. And who has not known of some well-authenticated instance of its manifestation. In other lands, certain races or sub-races, what the hell are they talking about there? We'll just say certain people seem to be specially favored or cursed, as Cameron asserted, with this power. It will be noticed usually that such people dwell or have dwelt in the highlands or mountains of their country. Oh, isn't that weird? I'm like, my psychic ability is skyrocketed since I moved to the Andes Mountains. Okay, little freaked out, getting back to the book. There seems to be something in the mountains and hills which tends to develop and encourage this power in those dwelling among them. Wow! Lesson 13, move to the mountains. Note to self, you should say. I'm just kidding. This story is also remarkable in the fact that the impression was so strong in the mind of Cameron that it actually communicated itself by clairaudience to those near to him. This is quite unusual, though not without correspondence in other cases. Otherwise, the case is merely a typical one and may be duplicated in the experience of thousands of other men and women. George Fox, yay, one of my relatives, the pioneer Quaker, had this faculty well developed, and numerous instances of its manifestation by him are recorded. For instance, he foretold the death of Cromwell when he met him riding at Hampton Court. He said that he felt a waft of death around and about Cromwell. Cromwell died shortly afterwards. Fox also publicly foretold the dissolution of the Rump Parliament of England, the restoration of Charles II, and the Great Fire of London. These are historical facts, remember. For that matter, history contains many instances of this kind. The prophecy of Caesar's death. Beware the Ides of March. Again, the word Ides means 13. No, I'm lying, means 15. Nunca mente. Never mind. All right. The prophecy of Caesar's death and its further prevision by his wife, for instance. Oh, I was just quoting Shakespeare. I didn't know his wife was in on this. Weird. The Bible prophecies and predictions, major ones and minor ones, give us semi-historical instances. This is true. A celebrated historical instance of remarkable second sight and prevision is that of Cazotte, whose wonderful prediction and its literal fulfillment are matters of French history. Oh, so it wouldn't be Cazotte, it'd be Cazotte. There we go, sorry. Dumas, I'm glad it doesn't say dumbass. Dumas has woven the fact into one of his stories in a dramatic manner. But even so, he does not make the tale any more wonderful than the bare facts. Spoiled sport. Sorry. Here's a recital of the case by La Harpe, the French writer. I am not going to do a French accent. Sorry about that. I hope my last two accents were like entertaining at least. I know they were completely like not even real, not even close to like reality, but I almost did. I almost did a really bad Bristol accent, but it just would have been too funny. Okay. So this is by La Harpe. He was a personal witness to the occurrence, and his testimony is corroborated by many others who were present at the time. This is what La Harpe says. It appears as but yesterday, and yet nevertheless, it was at the beginning of the year 1788. We were dining with one of our brethren at the Academy, a man of considerable wealth and genius. The conversation became serious. Much admiration was expressed on the revolution in thought which Voltaire had effected, and it was agreed that it was his first claim to the reputation he enjoyed. We concluded that the revolution must soon be consummated, that it was indispensable that superstition and fanaticism should give way to philosophy, and we began to calculate the probability of the period when this should be, and which of the present company should live to see it. The oldest complained that they could scarcely flatter themselves with the hope. The younger rejoiced that they might entertain this very probable expectation, and they congratulated the Academy, especially for having prepared this great work, and for having been the rallying point, the center and the prime mover of the liberty of thought. Only one of the guests had not taken part in all the joyousness of this conversation, and had even gently and cheerfully checked our splendid enthusiasm. This was Cazot, an amiable and original man, but unhappily infatuated with the reveries of the Illuminati. He spoke, and with the most serious tone, saying, "Gentlemen, be satisfied. You will all see this great sublime revolution which you so much desire. You know that I am a little inclined to prophesy. I repeat, you will see it." He was answered by the common rejoinder, one need not be a conjurer to see that. And he answered, "Be it so. But perhaps one must be a little more than a conjurer for what remains for me to tell you. Do you know what will be the consequences of this revolution? What will be the consequence to all of you? What will be the immediate result, the well-established effect, the thoroughly recognized consequences to all of you who are here present?" "Ah," said Condorcet, with his insolent and half-suppressed smile, "let us hear. A philosopher is not sorry to encounter a prophet. Let us hear." Cazot replied, "You, Monsieur de Condorcet, you will take up your last breath on the floor of a dungeon. You will die from poison, which you will have taken in order to escape from execution, from poison which the happiness of that time will oblige you to carry out about your person. You, Monsieur de Chamfort, you will open your veins with 22 cuts of a razor, and yet will not die till some months afterward." These personages looked at each other and laughed again. Cazot continued, "You, Monsieur Victor, You will not open your own veins, but you will cause yourself to be bled 6 times in one day during a paroxysm of the gout in order to make sure of your end, and you will die in the night. Cazot went on. You, Monsieur de Nicolai, you will die on the scaffold. You, Monsieur Bailly, on the scaffold. You, Monsieur de Malcherbe, on the scaffold. Ah, God be thanked, exclaimed Roucher. And what of I? Cazot replied, You will also die on the scaffold. Yes, replied Chamfort, but when will all of this happen? Cazot answered, 6 years will not pass over before all that I have said to ye shall be accomplished. Here I, La Harpe, spoke, saying, Here are some astonishing miracles, but you have not included me in your list. Cazot answered me, saying, Oh, but you will be there. As an equally extraordinary miracle, you will then be a Christian. Vehement exclamations on all sides followed this startling assertion. Ha, said Chamfort, I am comforted. If we shall perish only when La Harpe shall be a Christian, we are immortal. Then observed Madame la Duchesse de Gramont. As for that, we women, we are happy to be counted for nothing in these revolutions. When I say nothing, it is not that we do not always mix ourselves up with them but a little, but it is a received maxim that they take no notice of us and our sex. Your sex, ladies, said Cazot. Your sex will not protect you this time. You had far better meddle with nothing, for you will be treated entirely as men, without any difference whatsoever. But what then are you really telling us of, Monsieur Cazot? You are preaching to us the end of the world. I know nothing on that subject, but what I do know is that you, Madame la Duchesse, will be conducted to the scaffold. You and many other ladies with you in the cart of the executioner, and with your hands tied behind your backs. Wait, let's see who's... I hope that in that case I shall at least have a carriage hung in black. No, madame, higher ladies than yourself will go like you in the common car, with their hands tied behind them. Higher ladies. I'm sorry. Oh, no, she says. Higher ladies? What? The princesses of the blood? Yea, and still more exalted personages, replied Cazot. Here a sensible emotion pervaded the whole company, and the countenance of the host was dark and lowering. They began to feel that the joke was becoming far too serious. Madame de Gramont, in order to dissipate the cloud, took no notice of the reply, and contested herself with saying in a careless tone, You see that he will not leave me even a confessor. No, madame, replied Cazot. You will not have one, neither you nor anyone besides. The last victim to whom this favor will be afforded will be... Here he stopped for a moment. Well, who then will the happy mortal to whom this prerogative will be given? Cazot replied. It is the only one which he will have then retained, and that will be the King of France. This last startling prediction caused the company to disband in something like terror and dismay, for the mere mention of such a thing was akin to treason. The amazing sequel to this strange story is that within 6 years allotted by the prophecy, Every detail thereof was verified absolutely. The facts are known to all students of the French Revolution and may be verified by reference to any history of that terrible period. To appreciate the startling nature of the prophecy when made, one needs but to be acquainted with the position and the characteristics of the persons whose destinies were foretold. This celebrated instance of highly advanced future time clairvoyance, or prevision, has never been equaled. The reason perhaps is that Cazot indeed was an advanced, highly developed occultist. The account mentions this, you will notice. The class of persons very seldom prophesy in this way. Or this class of persons very seldom prophesy in this way, for reasons known to all occultists. The ordinary cases recorded are those in which the manifestation is that of a person of lesser powers and less perfect development. Advanced occultists know the danger of a careless use of this power. They know that, omitting other and very important reasons, such revelations would work a terrible effect upon the minds of persons not sufficiently well balanced to stand the disclosure. Moreover, they know that if the average person knew the principal details of his future life on earth, he would lose interest in it. It would become stale and would lose the attraction of the unknown. In such a case, the pleasant things to come would lose their attractiveness by reason of having been dwelt on so long that their flavor was lost. And the unpleasant things would become unbearable by reason of the continual anticipation of them. We are apt to discount our pleasures by dwelling too much upon them in anticipation. And as we all know, the dread of a coming evil often is worse than the thing itself. We suffer 1,000 pangs in anticipation to one in reality. But as I have intimated, there are other and still more serious reasons why the advanced occultists do not indulge in public prophecies of this kind. It is probable that Cazot decided to, and was permitted to, make his celebrated prophecy for some important occult reason of which Laharpe had no knowledge. It doubtless was a part of the working out of some great plan, and it may have accomplished results undreamed of by us. At any rate, it was something very much out of the ordinary, even in the case of advanced occultists and masters of esoteric knowledge. Another case, which has a historical value, in the well-known case concerning the assassination of Spencer Perceval, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I've never heard that word. The Chancellor of the Exchequer in England. Is that the person who calls your exes to see if they're all right? Exchequer? What the hell is that? Anyway, which occurred in the lobby of the House of Commons. The persons who have a knowledge of the case report that some 9 days before the tragic occurrence, a Cornish mine manager named John Williams had a vision 3 times in succession, in which he saw a small man dressed in a blue coat and white waistcoat entered the lobby of the House of Commons, whereupon another man dressed in a snuff-colored coat stepped forward, drew a pistol from inside his pocket, fired at and shot the small man, the bullet lodging in his left breast. In the vision, Williams turned and asked some bystander the name of the victim. The bystander replied that the stricken man was Mr. Spencer Perceval, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. The valuable feature in this case, from a scientific standpoint, lies in the fact that Williams was very much impressed by his thrice repeated vision and was greatly disturbed hereby. His anxiety was so great that he spoke of the matter to several friends and asked them whether it would not be well for him to go to London for the purpose of warning Mr. Perceval. His friends ridiculed the whole matter and persuaded him to give up his idea of visiting London for the purpose so named. Those who had a knowledge of the vision were greatly startled and shocked when several days afterward the assassination occurred. Agreeing in perfect detail with the vision of the Cornishman. The case vouched for as it was by a number of reliable persons who had been consulted by Williams, attracted much attention at the time, and has since passed into the history of remarkable instances of prevision. In some cases, however, the prevision seems to come as a warning, and in many cases the heeding of the warning prevented the unpleasant features from materializing as seen in the vision. Up to the point of the action upon the warning, the occurrence agree perfectly with the vision, but the moment the warned person acts so as to prevent the occurrence, the whole train of circumstances is broken. There is an occult explanation of this, but it is too technical to mention at this place. What is known to psychic researchers as the Hannah Green case is of this character. This story briefly is that Hannah Green, a housekeeper of Oxfordshire, dreamt that she, having been left alone in the house on a Sunday evening, heard a knock at the door. Opening the door, she found a tramp. That means like a homeless person, not slutty person in this case, because it's old English. Anyway, she found a tramp who tried to force his way into the house. She struggled to prevent his entrance, but he struck her with a bludgeon, rendered her insensible, whereupon he entered the house and robbed it. She related this vision to her friends, but as nothing happened for some time, the matter almost passed from her mind. But some 7 years afterwards, she was left in charge of the house on a certain Sunday evening. During the evening, she was startled by a sudden knock at the door. Her former vision was recalled to her memory quite vividly. She refused to go to the door, remembering the warning, but instead she went up to a landing on the stair and looked out the window. She saw at the door the very tramp whom she had seen in the vision 7 years before, armed with a bludgeon and striving to force an entrance into the house. She took steps to frighten away the rascal, and she was saved from the unpleasant conclusion of her vision. Now, many similar cases are recorded. In some cases, persons have been warned by symbols of various kinds, or else have had prevision in the same way. For instance, many cases are known in which the vision is that of the undertaker's wagon standing before the door of the person who dies sometime afterward, or the person is visioned clad in a shroud. The variations of this class are innumerable. Speak to the average dweller in the Highlands of Scotland or certain counties in Ireland. Regarding this, you will be furnished with a wealth of illustrations and examples. This phase of the general subject of clairvoyance is very fascinating to the student and investigator, and is one of the highest psychic or astral powers, and is one in which the highest psychic or astral powers of sensing are called into play. In fact, as I have said, there is here a reflection of something very much higher than the astral or psychic planes of being. The student catches a glimpse of regions infinitely higher and grander. He begins to realize at least something of the existence of that universal consciousness in which we live, move, and have our being, and of the reality of the eternal now, in which past, present, and future are blended as one fact of infinite consciousness. He sees the signboard pointing to marvelous truths. Lesson 14, Astral Body Traveling. There is much confusion existing in the minds of the average students of occultism concerning the distinction between astral visioning by means of the astral senses in clairvoyance and the visioning of the astral senses during travels of the astral body away from the physical body. There is such a close connection between the two several phases of occult phenomena that it is easy to mistake one for the other. In fact, there's often such a blending of the two that it is quite difficult to distinguish between them. However, in this lesson, I shall endeavor to bring out the characteristics of astral body visioning that the student may learn to distinguish them from those of the ordinary clairvoyant astral visioning and recognize them when he experiences them. The main points of distinction are these. When visioning clairvoyantly by means of the astral senses, as prescribed in the preceding chapters of this book, the clairvoyant usually perceives the scene, person, or event as a picture on a flat surface. It is true that there is generally a perfect perspective, similar to that of a good stereoscopic view, or that of a high-grade moving picture photograph. The figures stand out and do not appear flat, as in the case of an ordinary photograph. But still, at the best, it's like looking at a moving picture, inasmuch as the whole scene is all in front of you. Visioning in the astral body, on the contrary, gives you an all-around view of the scene. That is to say, in such case, you see the thing just as you would were you there in your physical body. You see in front of you, you see to the sides of you, out of the corner of your eye, and if you turn your head, you may see in any direction, and you may turn around and see what's happening behind you. In the first case, you're merely gazing at an astral picture in front of you, while in the second place, you are actually there in person. There are some limitations to this seeing all around when in the astral body, however, which I should note in passing. For instance, if when in the astral body you examine the Akashic records of the past, or else peer into the scenes of the future, you will see these things merely as a picture and will not be conscious of being present personally in the scene. An apparent exception is to be noted here also, viz. if your pastime visioning includes the perception of yourself in a former incarnation, you may be conscious of living and acting in your former personality. Again, if you are psychometrizing from fossil remains or anything concerned with a living creature of the past, you may take on the mental or emotional conditions of that creature and seem to sense things from the inside rather than from the outside. This, of course, is also a characteristic of the ordinary clairvoyant vision of the past. But when in the astral body, you perceive a present time scene in space, you are to all intents and purposes an actual participant. You are actually present at that place and time. The sense of being actually present in the body is the leading characteristic of the astral body visioning and distinguishes it from the picture seeing, sensing of ordinary clairvoyance. This is stating the matter is as plain and simple form as is possible, ignoring many technical details and particulars. You, being a student of occultism, of course know that the astral body is a fine counterpart of the physical body, composed of a far more subtle form of substance than is the latter. that under certain conditions you may travel in your astral body detached from your physical body, except being connected with it by a slender astral cord bearing a close resemblance to the umbilical cord which connects the newborn baby with the placenta in the womb of its mother, and explore the realms of the astral plane. This projection of the astral body, as a rule, occurs only when the physical body is stilled in sleep or in trance condition. In fact, the astral body frequently is projected by us during the course of our ordinary sleep, but we fail to remember what we've seen in our astral journeys, except occasionally dim flashes of partial recollection upon awakening. In some cases, however, our astral visioning is so distinct and so vivid that we awaken with a sense of having had a peculiar experience and as having actually been out of the physical body at the time. In some cases, the person traveling in the astral is able to actually take part in the distant scene and may, under circumstances, actually materialize himself so as to be seen by persons in their physical bodies. I am speaking now, of course, of the untrained person. The trained, developed occultist, of course, is able to do these things deliberately and consciously, instead of unconsciously and without intention, as in the case of the ordinary person. I shall quote here from another writer on the subject, whose point of view, in connection with my own, may serve to bring about a clear understanding in the mind of the student. It is always well to view any subject from as many angles as possible. So, this writer says, "We enter here upon an entirely new variety of clairvoyance, in which the consciousness of the seer no longer remains in or closely connected with his physical body, but is definitely transferred to the scene which he is examining. Though it has no doubt greater dangers for the untrained seer than either of the other methods, it is yet quite the most satisfactory form of clairvoyance open to him. In this case, the man's body is either asleep or in a trance, and its organs are consequently not available for use while the vision is going on, so that all description of what is seen and all questioning as to further particulars must be postponed until the wanderer returns to this plane. On the other hand, the sight is much fuller and more perfect. The man hears as well as sees everything which passes before him, and can move about freely at will within the very wide limits of the astral plane. He has also the immense advantage of being able to take part, as it were, in the scenes which come before his eyes, of conversing at will with various entities on the astral plane, and from whom so much information that is curious and interesting may be obtained. If in addition he can learn how to materialize himself, a matter of no great difficulty for him when once the knack is acquired, he will be able to take part in physical events or conversations at a distance, and to show himself to an absent friend at will. Again, he will have the additional power of being able to hunt about for what he wants. By means of the other varieties of clairvoyance, for all practical purposes, he may find a person or place only when he is already acquainted with it, or when he is put in rapport with it by touching something physically connected with it, as in psychometry. By the use of the astral body, however, a man can move about quite freely and rapidly in any direction, and can, for example, find without difficulty any place pointed out upon a map, without either any previous knowledge of the spot or any object to establish a connection with it. He can also readily rise high into the air so as to gain a bird's eye view of the country which he is examining, so as to observe its extent, the contour of its coastline, or its general character. Indeed, in every way, his power and freedom are far greater when he uses this method than they are at any of the lesser forms of clairvoyance. In many well-authenticated cases, we may see that a soul of a dying person, one whose physical end is approaching, visits friends and relatives in the astral body, and in many cases materializes and even speaks to them. In such cases, the dying person accomplishes the feat of astral manifestation without any special occult knowledge. The weakened links between the physical and higher phases of the soul render the temporary passing out comparatively easy, and the strong desire of the dying person furnishes the motive power necessary. Such visits, however, often found to be merely a strongly charged thought of the dying person, along the lines of telepathy, as I previously explained to you. But in many cases, there can be no doubt that the phenomenon is a clear case of astral visitation and materialization. The records for the Society of Psychical Research contain many instances of this kind, and similar instances are to be found in the records of Psychical Research. I shall quote a few of these cases for you that you might get a clear idea of the characteristics thereof. Andrew Lang, an eminent student and investigator along the lines of the psychic and occult, gives us the following case, of which he says, "Not many stories have such good evidence in their favor." The story, as related by Mr. Lang in one of his books, is as follows. Mary, the wife of John Goff of Rochester, being afflicted with a long illness, removed to her father's house in West Mailing, about 9 miles from her own. The day before her death, she grew very impatiently desirous to see her 2 children, whom she had left at home to the care of a nurse. She was too ill to be moved, and between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, she fell into a trance. One widow, Turner, who watched with her that night, says that her eyes were open and fixed, her jaw fallen. Mrs. Turner put her hand to her mouth but could perceive no breath. She thought her to be in a fit and doubted whether she were dead or alive. The next morning, the dying woman told her mother she had been at home with her children, saying, "I was with them last night when I was asleep." The nurse at Rochester, widow Alexander by name, affirms that a little before 2 o'clock that morning, she saw the likeness of the said Mary Goff come out of the next chamber where the elder child lay in a bed by itself, the door being left open, and stood by her bedside for about a quarter of an hour. The younger child was there lying by her. Her eyes moved and her mouth went, but she said nothing. The nurse, moreover, says that she was perfectly awake. It was then daylight, being one of the longest days of the year. She sat up in bed and looked steadfastly upon the apparition. In that time she heard the bridge clock strike 2, and a while after said, "In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, what art thou?" Thereupon the apparition removed and went away. She slipped out of her clothes and followed. What? Why? Why? Why would she take off her clothes right then? All right, whatever. She slipped out of her clothes and followed, but what came on it she cannot tell. That's too awkward of a sentence. To not say that's too awkward of a sentence. Okay, moving right along. In the case just mentioned, Mr. Lang states that the nurse was so frightened that she was afraid to return to bed. As soon as the neighbors, maybe she means she slipped out of her bedclothes, meaning the covers. Okay, sorry, that was just too awkward of a sentence, not to mention that 3 times. What the actual flock? Okay. Okay, so she was too frightened to return to bed. As soon as the neighbors were up and about, she told them of what she had seen, but they told her she had been dreaming. It was only later on, when news came of what had happened at the other end of the line, the bedside of the dying woman, that they had realized what just had happened. In a work by Reverend F.G. Lee, there are several other cases of this kind quoted, all of which are stated by Mr. Lee to be thoroughly well authenticated. In one of these cases, a mother, when dying in Egypt, appears to her children in Torquay and is clearly seen in broad daylight by all 5 children and also by the nursemaid. In another, a Quaker lady dying at Cockermouth. Excuse me, there. Can't touch that one with a 10-foot pole. Oh, so many jokes, so little time. A Quaker lady dying at Cockermouth is clearly seen and recognized in daylight by her 3 children at Seattle. The remainder of the story being almost identical with that of the Goff case just quoted. In the records of the Society for Psychical Research, the following case appears, the person reporting it being said to be of good character and reputation for truthfulness and reliability. The story is as follows. One morning in December 1836, A had the following dream, or he would prefer to call it a revelation. He found himself suddenly at the gate of Major N.M.'s Avenue, many miles from his home. Close to him was a group of persons, one of whom was a woman with a basket on her arm. The rest were men, 4 of whom were tenants of his own, while the others remained unknown to him. Some of the strangers seemed to be assaulting H.W., one of his tenants, and he interfered. A says, I struck violently at the man on my left, and then with greater violence at the man's face on my right. Finding, to my surprise, that I had not knocked down either, I had struck again and again with all the violence of a man frenzied at the sight of my poor friend's murder. To my amazement, I saw my arms, although visible to my eye, were without substance, and the bodies of the men I struck at, and with my own, came close together after each blow, through the shadowy arms I struck with. My blows were delivered with more extreme violence than I ever think I exerted, but I became painfully convinced of my incompetency. I have no consciousness of what happened after this feeling of unsubstantiality came upon me. Next morning, A experienced the stiffness and soreness of violent bodily exercise and was informed by his wife that in the course of the night he had much alarmed her by striking out again and again in a terrific manner, as if fighting for his life. He in turn informed her of his dream, begged her to remember the names of those actors in it who were known to him. On the morning of the following day, which was a Wednesday, A received a letter from his agent, who resided in the town close to the scene of the dream, informing him that his tenant had been found on Tuesday morning at Major N.M.'s gate, speechless and apparently dying from a fracture to the skull, and that there was no trace of the murderers. That night, A started for the town and arrived there on Thursday morning. On his way to a meeting of magistrates, he met the senior magistrate of that part of the country and requested him to give orders for the arrest of the 3 men whom, besides H.W., he had recognized in his dream, and had to have them examined separately. This was done at once. The 3 men gave identical accounts of the occurrence and all named the woman who was with them. She was then arrested and gave precisely similar testimony. They said that between 11 and 12 on the Monday night, they had been walking homewards all together along the road when they were overtaken by 3 strangers, 2 of whom savagely assaulted H.W. while the other prevented his friends from interfering. H.W. did not die, but was never the same man afterwards. He subsequently emigrated. Don't blame him for that. Stead, the English editor and psychical researcher, relates the following case, which he accepts as truthful and correct after careful investigation of the circumstances and of the character and reputation of the person relating it. The story proceeds as follows. St. Eglos is situated about 10 miles from the Atlantic and not quite so far from the old market town of Trebodwina. Hart and George Northey were brothers, and from childhood their lives had been marked by the strongest brotherly affection. Hart and George Northey had never been separated from their birth until George became a sailor, Hart meantime joining his father in business. On the 8th of February, 1840, while George Northey's ship was lying in port at St. Helena, he had the following strange dream. Last night I dreamt that my brother was at Trebodwina market, and that I was with him quite close by his side during the whole of the market transactions. Although I could see and hear which passed around me, I felt sure that it was not my bodily presence which thus accompanied him, but my shadow, or rather my spiritual presence, for he seemed quite unconscious that I had been near him. I felt that my being thus present in this strange way betokened some hidden danger which he was destined to meet, and which I know my presence could not avert, for I could not speak to warn him of his peril. The story then proceeds to relate how Hart collected considerable money at Trebodwina market and then started to ride homeward. George tells what happened to his brother on the way as follows. My terror gradually increased as Hart approached the hamlet of Polcaro, and until I was in a perfect frenzy, frantically desirous yet unable to warn my brother in some way and prevent him going further. I suddenly became aware of 2 dark shadows thrown across the road. I felt that my brother's hour had come, and I was powerless to aid him. 2 men appeared whom I instantly recognized as notorious poachers who lived in a lonely wood near St. Eglos. They wished him, "Good night, mister," civilly enough. He replied and entered into conversation with them about some work he had promised them. After a few minutes they asked him for some money. The elder of the 2 brothers, who was standing near the horse's head, said, "Mr. Northey, we know you have just come from Trebodwina market with plenty of money in your pockets. We are desperate men, and you bean't going to leave this place until we've got that money, so hand it over." My brother made no reply except to slash at him with the whip and spur the horse at him. The younger of the ruffians instantly drew a pistol and fired. Hart dropped lifeless from the saddle. One of the villains held him by the throat with a grip of iron for some minutes. as thought to make assurance doubly sure and crush any particle of life my poor brother might have left. The murderers secured the horse to a tree in the orchard. Having rifled the corpse, they dragged it up the stream, concealing it under the overhanging banks of the watercourse. Then they carefully covered all marks of blood on the road, hid the pistol in the thatch of a disused hut close to the roadside. Then, setting the horse free to gallop home alone, they decamped across the country to their own cottage. The story then relates how George Northey's vessel left St. Helena the next day after the dream and reached Plymouth in due time. George carried with him a very vivid recollection of his vision on the return voyage, and never doubted for an instant that his brother had been actually murdered in the manner and by the persons named as had been seen in the vision. He carried with him the determination to bring the villains to justice and was filled with conviction that through his efforts retribution would fall upon the murderers. In England, justice was at work, but the missing link was needed. The crime aroused universal horror and indignation, and the authorities left nothing undone in the direction of discovering the murderers and bringing them to justice. 2 brothers named Heightwood were suspected, and in their cottage were found blood-stained garments, but no pistol was found, although the younger brother admitted having owned but lost one. They were arrested and brought before the magistrates. The evidence against them was purely circumstantial, and not any too strong at that, but their actions were those of guilty men. They were committed for trial. Each confessed in hopes of saving his life and obtaining imprisonment instead. Both were convicted and sentenced to be hanged. There was doubt in the minds of some, however, about the pistol. The story continues. Before the execution, George Northey arrived from St. Helena and declared that the pistol was in the thatch of the old cottage close by the place where they had murdered Hart Northey and where they had hid it. "How do you know?" he was asked. George replied, "I saw the foul deed committed in a dream I had the night of the murder. When at St. Helena, the pistol was found, as George Northey had predicted, in the thatch of the ruined cottage." Investigation revealed that the details of the crime were identical with those he had seen in the vision. It is a fact known to all occultists that many persons frequently travel in the astral body during sleep, and in many cases retain a faint recollection of some of the things they have seen and heard during their travels in the astral. Nearly everyone knows the experience of waking up in the morning feeling physically tired and used up. In some cases, a dim recollection of walking or working during the dream being had. Who among us has not had the experience of walking on the air or in the air without our feet touching the ground, being propelled simply by the effort of will? And who of us has not experienced that dreadful falling through space sensation in dreams with the sudden awakening just before we actually struck Earth? And who has not had the mortifying dream experience of walking along the street or in some public place and being suddenly overcome by the consciousness that we were in our night clothes or perhaps without any clothing at all? All of these things are more or less distorted recollection of astral journeyings. But while these dream excursions in the astral are harmless, the conscious going out in the astral is not so. There are many planes of the astral into which it is dangerous and unpleasant for the uninstructed person to travel, unless accompanied by a capable occultist as guide. Therefore, I caution all students against trying to force development in that direction. Nature surrounds you with safeguards and interposes obstacles for your own protection and good. Do not try to break through these obstacles without knowledge of what you are doing. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Remember, and a little learning is a dangerous thing. When you have reached the stage of development in which it will be safe for you to undertake conscious astral explorations, then will your guide be at hand, and the instruction furnished you by those capable of giving it to you. Do not try to break into the astral without due preparation and full knowledge, lest you find yourself in the state of the fish who leapt out of the water onto the banks of the stream. Your dream trips are safe. They will increase in variety and clearness, and you will remember more about them. All this before you may begin to try to consciously go out into the astral as do the occultists. Be content to crawl before you may walk. Learn to add, multiply, subtract, and divide before you undertake the higher mathematics like algebra, geometry, and etc. of occultism. All right, guys, well, that's the end of these 2 lessons. Next week, we will be back on Saturday with lesson 15 in Clairvoyance and Occult Powers by Swami Panchadasi. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I learned a lot from this lesson and both of these lessons. I'm really glad I'm reading this book. I'm learning a lot, and it's kind of filling in some information I didn't quite have. I had almost all of it, but there were some basic things, and I'm like, oh yeah, that. All right, that. Because I have had dreams where I was in a place, and like when I went to Thailand, and I was sitting at a cafe with somebody, and we were having a cup of coffee together, and I thought maybe he was a little bit see-through like me, and we witnessed a bombing in Thailand, and we were looking all around. We could see from every angle. And then I woke up and I was exhausted, and when I turned on the news that day, sure enough, on that corner that I had been at in the astral body, sipping coffee with my friend, who I don't know in real life, but in the astral realm, apparently I do know him. And I watched the guys as they mounted the bomb, and I watched them set it off. I thought it was fireworks or something at first, when they like had the lighter and they're starting to light the end of it. And sure enough, there was a bombing in Thailand, and I'm like, what the hell? That's exactly where I was. I was freaked out. I watched all the news reports on it going, whoa, I was there. I was there. And I'll tell you guys on another day, but I witnessed a funeral of a famous musician who I loved. And when I went to his concert thinking that was a future vision, it turns out his cousin did the concert for him because he died, and his funeral was the day that I had that astral out of body. I was invited to his funeral. It was very weird, but I'll tell you more of it later. But I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this. I love reading these books. Monday's the Spirits book, of course, and Saturdays are occult lessons and learning how to be more psychic, more clairvoyant, and obviously astral travel. And all these are not supernatural phenomena, but they're natural phenomena. So it's kind of neat that we're learning how to do it. Now that we're in the 5th dimension, it's all going to be a lot easier. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow with all original and unique programming. And that's all I got to say about that for now. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you for wanting to carry on with me and for promoting my show whenever you can and sending it out to all your Facebook groups and Twitter lists and mailing lists. A few of you have a long mailing list for email, and I thank you for that, for helping me get the word out. So that's it for now. Signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the holy 5th dimension. Until next time, guys, peace. Do you ever wish you could look into the next chapter in your book of life and see what's coming next? What does the universe have in store for you? I can help you with that. I will give you a Celtic cross reading, which is 10 cards, or you can ask me 3 questions, and I use 3 cards per question. So that's 9 cards, or I can channel your higher guidance, or maybe God directly for you. Maybe you want to talk to your dear departed Aunt Edna, because maybe you have a few questions and she was the smartest person you knew. If your deceased relatives are available or your ascended masters, I can channel them for you personally. Let me have 1 hour to show you the future in your next chapter of your book of life. Readings are $75, and it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to complete. And for this price, you will also be hooked up to the healing grid around the planet for free, which means yours truly, me, I will be giving you Reiki 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. All you have to do is let me know. metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, and we will explore your future together.